Hi, everyone. Hi, welcome to Leisrealtalk. Well, first of all, I want to show you something. I got this. Finally, it came in, I think after 2 weeks. Uh, hello. Oh, can you guys see? Here's Pooh Bear. I haven't got time to take off the tag yet, but it says 2 plus. So hopefully I qualify for the age group. All right. Okay. Isn't he cute? Oh, it's cuddly. All right. So he will keep me company here. Okay. I hope everyone's week has been great so far. I have been very busy lately. Oh, welcome, Lei and Pooh Bear. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it took absolutely 2 weeks for him to come in. Okay, so he's sitting here on my desk. All right, let's talk about. I mean, I've been reading and investigating a death case in Texas, uh, and I'm doing that remotely. So I'm going to share with you what I found. Because Angela Chow's story or her death is, I mean, it got. I don't think it's that. Um, I don't think it's that big of a news in Western media, but it's definitely a major story in the Chinese speaking communities because of her family. You know, her family is considered the first family of Chinese Americans in this country, and her family is also very popular in China. So a lot of people have been, asking, uh, talking about what really triggered her death. So hopefully we will, get to the bottom of this tonight together. So she is beautiful, smart, wealthy, and but her death was tragic. I think what made her death mysterious or appeared mysterious is that her family is trying to cover up the cause of her death. I think Angela Chow might have been caught in ugly CCP politics amid worsening Sino-US relations. And the most probable cause of her death is suicide. Last Thursday, February the 15th, I did a program on the mysterious death of her. Um, and I gave three, if you summarize my program, I gave three reasons, right? I called her death mysterious for three reasons. The first is the confusion of how she died in Texas. Was it car crash involving a truck and a drunken driver, or was it drowning in a pound? And the second confusion was, or the reason was, her family's decades of close ties to the CCP, starting from her shipping tycoon father to her venture capitalist husband and herself being the chairman and CEO of her father's company. And the third reason is a prominent Chinese media uh, published a fake news on her death. So those three unusual circumstances made her death more than just a normal car accident. And after a few more days of analysis and investigation and thinking, I came to the conclusion that her family, the Chow family, is trying to cover up the real cause of her death. And the reason is that she died from suicide. And here are the facts that we know so far. So I'm going to run down the chronological event that I've gathered to hopefully show you why I came to that conclusion. So from the very beginning, her family wanted the public to believe that Angela Chow died in a car accident. In their initial statement on February the 12th, they only said that she died from a car accident without providing any details. Now, then what happened is to help ensure this accident narrative, one of the Chinese media affiliated with a Chow, with their family, with a family friend who happens to be Wang Qishan, published a fake report claiming that she died in a car crash involving a drunken driver and a truck when she was going to a meeting. And this media is Caixin, the media outlet affiliated with former Vice President of China, Wang Qishan. Wang was seen whispering into the ears of Elaine Chao on October 22nd, 2019, in Japan, at the official enthronement ceremony of Emperor Naruhito. You can actually Google and see this video. There's just so many different versions of this video online. You can Google and see it. And that video showed the two of them. I mean, one was representing China and Elaine Chao was representing the United States. They were both representing um, the two most powerful countries in the world, right? But the two were caught on camera secretly whispering and for a few minutes. Actually, the last part of the video was cut off, so the actual conversation could be longer than what we saw on the video. So Caixin's report was published on February 12th, and it was the same day that, that her company announced her death. Now, on the same day Caixin reported her death, no other Western media reported that yet, but we found a small Turkish website that's dedicated to real estate reported Chao's death in English, and it seems very odd. And then it's a verbatim translation of the Chinese Caixin report. So some people believe that even that Turkish report, I mean, that Turkish website, that Turkish real estate website, maybe an asset run by the Chinese. I will post the links for you after this. I haven't got time to copy the links yet, but that appeared on February the 12th as well. But it's obviously a translation of the Caixin report. Then on February 13th, the USA Today reported her death. Here I have a citing car accident, and also saying several media publications. And I highlighted in this slide because I'm thinking, well, what do you mean several media publications? At that point, there weren't many Western media that reported this. It was that Chinese report and that Turkish report. And so what do you mean by several media publications? I mean, if there weren't major ones. And then the following day, the New York Times reported Chao's death in a car crash. Okay. Here we go. And of course, the report is incorrect, is erroneous. And sadly, the piece was authored by the New York Times' best team of journalists who specialize in China and China affairs. Its Beijing bureau chief was an author. I think he co-authored this with another colleague of his who also specializes on China. And so this piece was published on February the 14th, the same day when investor Kyle Bass announced on X that Angela Chao died in her Tesla backing into the pond. So I don't know if the New York Times reporters and editors were aware of Kyle Bass's report on X on that day, because the New York Times piece didn't have a timestamp. So it might have been published before Bass's post. Now, Bass's posts have a timestamp of 9 a.m. I think it was a few minutes before 9 a.m. on February the 14th. At 2:30 p.m. that day, CNN came to the rescue to the Chao family. Oh, this was also on the 14th. A law firm in California reported her death. Now, this law firm specialized in personal injury, so I think they were interested in car accidents more than others. So they reported incorrectly her death on its website, and it's called, hold on, let me make this. And the company is called RTM Law Firm. I highlighted their name. That was also on the 14th. And then CNN on February 14th at 2:30, CNN also, not also, but I think came to rescue the Chao family by publishing another piece that claimed that Angela Chao died in a car crash. This is 5.5 hours after Kyle Bass posted on X saying that she died drowning in a pond. And you would think the CNN would at least verify the facts, call the police, call the Blanco County Sheriff's Office, verify the fact before they do this. But obviously they didn't. And then even on February the 15th, the Associated Press continued to say that she died in a car accident without saying anything about drowning in a pond. So that's just very odd. These are major media outlets. To report, you should at least contact the police and verify the facts. It's just not very credible. They're losing their credibility when they report like this. And this involves somebody's death. So I found it rather odd. So it's not until February the 16th when mainstream media started reporting Angela, being drowned in her car in a pond on a private ranch in Texas. And so mainstream media collectively choose to help cover Angela Chao's death by sticking to the family's statement and also the Chinese Caixin's report. I don't know how to interpret this. I guess it shows the influence of the Chao family on the media, both in China and also here. I don't know how to explain this because it's just not very professional, and these are not small media outlets. Now, Blanco County Sheriff's Office has also been acting very strangely, in my opinion. They didn't say much about the death case either. They tried to say as little as possible. Now, CNBC reported on the 16th and quoted the county EMS chief. His name is Ben Oakley. And he said that emergency personnel were called just after midnight Sunday to respond to a water rescue at a private property in Johnson City. The rescue team arrived at the scene at 12:12 a.m. the following morning. That's Sunday morning, right, on the 11th, where a car containing Chao was completely submerged in a pond between 12 feet and 15 feet deep. That's how deep her car had sunk. And she was extricated from the vehicle, and rescue workers tried to resuscitate her for 43 minutes. That's quite long. And the report said, despite immediate emergency measures, she couldn't be revived after being submerged in water. So judging from this CNBC report, it felt like she drowned not too long ago before someone called emergency help, right? And when they called, they told 911 or whatever that it was a water rescue. So they told them what went wrong. However, in the same report, the sheriff's office, this is what they said. It says the sheriff's office has preliminarily ruled the incident as an unfortunate accident, with further investigations still underway. We had previously heard from the sheriff's office that they didn't think the case had any foul play in it, right? So they think this is just an unfortunate accident. But the person, Oakley, Mr. Oakley, declined to identify who called the rescue workers or who owned the property, saying that he couldn't release the information. And he also says something that's very important to me because I I think the next line caught my attention. He said, there was no indication of how the car ended up in the pound. That line didn't make sense to me. He said there was no indication of how the car ended up in the pound. I think this statement is rather strange. If the police didn't know how the car ended up in the pound, then how did they rule out that? How did they rule that it was an unfortunate accident? How did they know that it was not a foul play if they didn't know how the car ended up in the pound? Because someone might have pushed the car into the pound and pond. Sorry, pound. I'm thinking about British sterling pound. Pond. Um, okay. Muscle. Anyways, so um, so I think the police absolutely knew how the car went into the pond because they must have asked the person who called the police. The person who called the police obviously knew Angela was under the water. And that person must have seen how she got under the water. Otherwise, how would she know if they didn't see Angela was underwater? I mean, if they didn't see how Angela got under the water, how do they know that she was under 15 to 12 to 15 feet under the water? It was like midnight. It was pitch dark. You couldn't see anything, right? How do you know that somebody is underwater, so deep underwater? So they must have seen how she got into the water. And so when they called 911, they said, well, it's water rescue. So they must have told the police how she got into the water. So the police lied. The police didn't tell the truth. Um, so that's my next question. So why did the police lie? And then throughout the entire time of investigation, at least for the duration that I was fascinated with this case, the Blanco County Sheriff's Office seems to be very certain that there was no foul play, but didn't, in this case, but didn't release much details. Um, so we put everything together through these unprofessional media reports and the local police lack of transparency. It seems that someone is trying very hard to cover up the cause of her death. They just didn't want us to know the real cause of her death through media misinformation and police cover up. But we also know from what the police said that it couldn't be a homicide case, because if it was a homicide case and the police would try to cover up, that's significant, that's serious, right? And so what's going on here? I think the only reason that explains all of this is that the Chao family wants to cover up um, Angela's death because she more than likely committed suicide, and it took place on her own ranch. And this is utterly embarrassing or even defaming to a family that enjoys so much privilege and status, particularly among the Chinese communities. Think about it. If it's a homicide or a real accident that killed their darling daughter, wouldn't her family want to investigate and find the perpetrator? Or even if it's mechanical failure, I mean, they would turn the whole pond inside out, upside down. I don't know. I mean, it wouldn't be so quiet, right? Um, and also they wouldn't go out of their way, to work with all the media trying to massage the media report. So there are several other facts that support this. First of all, Angela and her husband live in Austin. So where do you think she would most likely be before midnight on Saturday or Sunday? Actually, before midnight on Saturday, it would be at home. And what do you think the chance of her accidentally drowning herself in her car on her own property? I think it's very small. And And what's the chance of someone killing her at her home? I think, despite many conspiracy theory, I think it's very small because the local police would have certainly, got on the case, but they seem to have dismissed it. Now, if she was on someone else's ranch and drowned, and do you think she would commit suicide at someone else's property close to midnight? Um, or if it's homicide, on somebody else's property, why would she, you know, why would her family go out of their way to deploy their media friends far away as in China to create fake news to cover it up? Wouldn't they want justice for their daughter? And why would New York Times and CNN, came to their rescue? So if you put everything into perspective, the only explanation is that her family is trying to save Angela and her family's reputation, and other parties willingly agree to help because they feel obligated, maybe, or to help save their family's reputation. I mean, it's not grotesquely wrong from their perspective, but if it's homicide, then you can't do it. um the other reason what I think it's suicide is that her case is so similar. um oh yeah, here it is, to a suicide case by um to a suicide committed by another Chinese American. This was a famous Chinese American scientist. His name is Zhang Shoucheng. Now, Zhang was one of the world's most renowned physicists and a professor at Stanford University. He was born in China and became a US citizen. He collected many awards for his research on quantum physics and was widely believed to be the next Chinese to receive the Nobel Prize in Physics. However, his fate changed when he was recruited by CCP's 1,000 Talent Plan, and he became devoted to Beijing. He was widely reported by Chinese media as someone who significantly helped Huawei achieve an advantage in 5G technology. He was also a professor at Tsinghua University and winner of numerous CCP awards. And he was received by Xi Jinping and Li Keqiang and other top leaders in Beijing to honor him. Now, all of this, you could say, well, he's just a very accomplished scientist and who taught in both China and the US. That wasn't deadly, but what became deadly is when he became too ambitious and got into financing. What got on the nerves of the US government was Dr. Zhang's $400 million venture capital firm called Danhua Capital. I think it changed the name to something else later. I don't remember the name. But if you Google his name is, the article is called The Death of a Quantum Man. Something like that. Many major media outlets reported his death. Yeah, one is called The Death of a Quantum Man. Anyways, so his VC invested in more than 100 projects that are linked to US defense industry or with dual purpose applications. Most were in emerging technologies that Beijing has identified as strategic priorities. And his funds, I mean, he didn't have $400 million. His funds mostly came from Chinese SOEs and even Beijing municipal government. And 11 days before he died, his company was named in a special 301 report by the US Trade Representative Office as part of the web of entities set up in Silicon Valley to further CCP's industrial goals. Now, this is very similar to Angela Chao's husband's VC firm being identified on Pentagon's list, right, the day before she died. On the day Professor Zhang committed suicide, he had a meeting with FBI in his lab. I think the FBI approached him, asked for a meeting in his lab. Now, Professor Zhang was very close to Huawei. On the same day, Huawei's CFO, Meng Wanzhou, was detained in Vancouver on a U.S. arrest warrant. Dr. Zhang committed suicide. So he committed suicide on the day Meng Wanzhou was detained in Vancouver. He jumped from his San Francisco condo. He was going out with his wife. They went down to, I think, either the garage or they went down to their car in the ground floor. And then Zhang told his wife that he needed to go back to the condo to get something. And then the next time when she saw him again, he had jumped from the building. His death is tragic. The world lost one of its best scientists, but his mistake was that he was too ambitious. If he had stayed in science and not getting into CCP's strategy or VC, all of that, I think his trouble was manageable. The fact that he received CCP's money and started his VC business in the US, it became fatal to him. After all, he's not a finance guy, right? And when he tried to manage, the challenge set up, presented by, finance, politics, and science, when all three got tangled up against a complex geopolitical backdrop, it just became overwhelming for him. The similarity between Professor Zhang's death and Angela Chao, Angela Chao's death, is that both were high achievers. They were both extremely successful and enjoyed great fame and wealth, both in China and the US. Both had close ties with the CCP, and both played instrumental role in helping the regime in achieving its goals. Consequently, a significant part of their wealth came from their business with the CCP. However, when their business model no longer became sustainable in the current geopolitical climate, they were crushed because they got pressured from both sides. They were investigated or pressured from both sides, from both the United States and China. The US, investigated them, and while the CCP is also threatening them and forbid them to back off. Now let's talk about Angela Chao, right? So what problem did she exactly have? Well, Angela Chao was in the same boat. Her husband, Jim Breyer's VC firm, was named, like I said, the Chinese military company by Pentagon the day before she died. Now, Beijing wouldn't allow them to pull their investments out of those strategically important projects. There's no way Beijing would allow them to pull out. The Chinese would use anti-espionage law to threaten them because they had already known too much. Now, in the US, they could also face the pressure from their investors who don't want to be associated with the CCP or the Chinese military, right? So this is a problem that that I don't know how they're going to solve. But this is only just one of the many problems that Angela Chao was dealing. Her biggest problem might be that she got caught in CCP internal politics. So in my February 15th program, I talk about how Angela's father, James Chao, started his good fortune with the CCP, quote unquote good fortune with the CCP. Now the good fortune becomes deadly. He lost his daughter. But quote unquote good fortune with the CCP because he was a classmate. He was in the same class with former CCP leader Jiang Zemin. Mitch McConnell's wife, Elaine Chao, used to call Jiang Zemin uncle. That's according to Chinese media. I think she and Mitch visited China a couple of times, and Jiang Zemin received them. I think 3 times. Jiang Zemin received them 3 times, and she called him uncle. So the Chao family business ties were built during Jiang Zemin's time. We all know that Jiang Zemin, the Jiang faction, has been Xi Jinping's biggest political enemy, right? So this association with the Jiang faction is making Angela's life more and more miserable, particularly now, because she might have been inadvertently involved in the Evergrande collapse. So now let's talk about why some people are saying that um, Evergrande is one of her biggest problems, or was one of her biggest problems. Now, Angela Chao was an independent board member of Bank of China from January 2017 to June 2022. During her tenure, Evergrande obtained $100 billion worth of loans from American banks, with the Bank of China acting as a guarantor. Some say Angela played an instrumental role in helping Evergrande securing foreign loans. Bank of China's independent, because she was the bank's independent director. Now, Bank of China's independent director has a term of 3 years. Angela served 2 terms. Well, she didn't finish a full second term and left the board 6 months earlier. So according to the Bank of China's announcement on June 30th, 2022, Angela ceased to serve as a director and all other positions within the bank. And so this suggests that she was dismissed before the end of her term, and the timing coincided with the bank's fallout with Evergrande. The fallout likely began earlier than that. It likely began in the fourth quarter of 2021, when Evergrande faced a systemic debt repayment crisis, and the Bank of China took a hard stance, including freezing their accounts and requesting Evergrande to file bankruptcy. Now, the actions of the Bank of China angered Evergrande's founder, Xu Jiaying. And so the head of the Bank of China, Liu Liange, and the founder of Evergrande, Xu Jiaying, started a bitter war between them. They insulted each other publicly, but their attack on each other resulted in their arrest. Both were arrested in October 2023. Okay? So now both are being detained by Xi Jinping, and both are forced to redeem themselves by telling Xi Jinping who they have been working with. Actually, if you really look at what Xi Jinping has been doing in the past year or so, many financial executives associated with Evergrande have been arrested, such as the vice president of Mingsheng Bank and 4 leaders of Agricultural Bank. Both banks lent large sums to Evergrande. And the president of China Merchants Bank has also fallen. So those connected with Evergrande are facing investigation, arrests, and sentencing. Yesterday, now the timing was yesterday, Liu Liange, former party secretary and chairman of the Bank of China, was charged with financial crimes, including bribery and illegal lending. Now, Liu was Bank of China's president from August 2018 and became its chairman from July 2019 until his dismissal in 2023. So if you look at his tenure, 4 out of his 5 years at the bank overlapped with Angela Chao. So if Xi Jinping is sentencing the former chairman of Bank of China for being involved in Evergrande, do you think he's not investigating Angela Chao, its board member, whose family is so close to the Jiang faction? I think the chances for him not investigating Angela Chao and her family is very slim. Why do I say that? Well, this is because when CCP, when the officials from the Central Commission of, what do you call that? The Central Discipline Inspection, when they interrogate Xu Jiaying, the founder of Evergrande, they ask him three questions. The first is, who has been protecting you politically behind the scene? Second question is, who has helped you obtain huge loans and then transfer wealth out of the country? And finally, which big shots have you conquered using members from your dance troupe? I mean, he has a dance troupe comprised of beautiful women. And I'm making a video and probably will be released this Friday. So stay tuned, subscribe and stay tuned. That will show you Evergrande's secret weapon to anyways, okay, that's a separate topic. So they ask him these three questions: who has been protecting you politically behind the scene? Who has helped you obtain huge amount of loans, and then help you transfer wealth out of the country? I think Angela Chao and her husband may very well likely be implicated in the answers given by many of these former Evergrande executives. Um, I think the chances for the Zhao family not be implicated is small. So when you look at this, Angela Chao had everything in life that a woman could ask for. She was smart, beautiful, well-educated, had a successful father and a wealthy husband, but she could be the world's unhappiest woman when she died. The double graduate of Harvard died at age 50. Her death is tragic, but her family's decades of strong ties to the CCP um, became her biggest liability. And all of that weight rests on her shoulder like a big mountain, because CCP would pressure her. They wouldn't pressure her husband. I mean, they would, between the two, I was asked that question last time, they would pick her because she's Chinese, and she's the weaker link of the two. So they would put the pressure on the weakest link. So this woman basically was shouldering all the pressure coming from coming from the CCP side. And then while the US government and her investors, right, her American circle of friends are forcing them to cut the ties. So like Professor Zhang, she wasn't experienced in dealing with the CCP's ugly business. I mean, they are good at what they do. And so they they grew up with privilege, with success, with all of that. So how was she able to deal with the pressure coming from the CCP's ugly business? So when she's under pressure from both the Pentagon and from Xi Jinping's people, she's mentally crushed. And her family is trying to hide her suicide because it would raise too many questions, and the family couldn't answer, because it would certainly air many, many unpleasant facts about their dealings with the CCP. And the reason why Hu Shuli, the most dangerous woman in China, I made a video about her. You can watch that video to find out who she is. So the reason why she would agree to publish a fake news, because she normally wouldn't do that, because she's a reputable journalist. The reason that she would agree to publish a fake news to help the Chao family is that she wanted to help those who are fighting Xi Jinping. Remember, she has been doing things recently to challenge Xi. So politically, right, she is willing to help the Chao family, or at least they are fighting with Xi. So I think, to summarize, the Chao family lost their daughter because they got caught in CCP's ugly politics, in Xi Jinping's ugly fight with the anti-Xi forces. Miss Hu being the most dangerous woman in China, being the most dangerous and outspoken journalist in China, doesn't mind at all helping a friend who's fighting Xi Jinping. So the above is my speculative analysis. I can be wrong. But what I don't see is how this case can become a homicide case, right? So that, and also, this case is absolutely not a normal car accident case. So if you root out those two, the only possibility that's left is a suicide. So I could summarize my analysis as easy as I just don't see how the local police and all the major media can turn this case around and claim it's a homicide. It's just going to ruin their reputation. So that's unlikely. And we all know it's just not a normal accident. Like she's just drowned in her car at midnight at home in a pond. It's impossible. So the only explanation that could connect all the dots that seems to make sense is she committed suicide at home and her family is trying to cover up. And as a result, they created such a mysterious case unnecessarily. That's all I want to say. All right, okay, let's see. Let's bring Pooh Bear here. All right. Hello, any questions for me? I should cut this tag. I didn't have time. All right, let's see. Any questions for me? I saw some super chat questions. I want to address them first. Oh. Sue Chen. Thank you, Sue. Thank you, Sue, for the support. I appreciate that. All right, let's see. I'm going through really fast. This Pooh Bear, the face, he has this. This is not even. I think this. Where is it made? Somebody asked me if it's made in China. Yeah, it is made in China. Isn't it ironic? Pooh Bears are made in China. All right, let's see. Let me get serious. Let me see if you guys have questions for me. No questions. I think I have confused you by now. I think I have more than likely confused you. My apology if that is the case. All right, Derek Lowe. Well, thank you. Leisrealtalk. Any name suggestions for what? Name suggestions? Made in China, Winnie the Pooh. CCP had a lot of covert. Okay, I have a question. Mark Hamai, love the stream lay. Overall, what would this mean for Elaine Chao? Your thoughts? I think she was the one probably who called Wang Qishan or Hu Shuli to say, hey, we need some help. Can you guys do a piece? Because Caixin media is a very has a good reputation. You know, a lot of Western media would copy their pieces, so it's a good media to have this piece published. So she probably called them to say, "Hey, can you help? Can you help our family by making people think that she died?" You know, but or maybe she didn't say exactly what to write, but can you help to make people believe that Angela died in a car accident? And they're very, I mean, it is a car accident because it's an accident, right? They say it's an accident and it involves a car. So technically, for them to call a car accident, they were playing with the semantics very carefully, but it wasn't wrong. But most people assume a car accident would be a car crash. So I think, what does it mean to her? It's not good. Because sooner or later, people will find out that she died. I mean, right now they're keeping, the two questions that's crucial. One is who called the police and who owned this ranch? Why were the police so secretive about these two pieces of information? Right? As soon as people find out where she died, which pond she fell into, and who called the police, the mystery is over. And then the next question is, why would a beautiful, successful, wealthy, charming Angela Chao commit suicide? And people would ask more questions. So I don't think it will look very good, because she could, to some extent, people could hold other members of the family. People could blame other members of the family for the little sister's demise, because it's not like she was the one who dealt with the CCP. It's all of them. The entire family had a very strong, and her husband, all of them had a strong connection or close connections with the CCP. However, the pressure fell on Angela because she was the chairman and CEO of the company. And she was the one active. She sat on the board of those two Chinese companies, right? And she was the one, I think she is the go-to person between her family and Beijing. So all the pressure fell on her. She couldn't stand it. What do you think people will think of her, Elaine Chao? I don't think it's going to be very good. Well, that's just my view. Let's see. I'm just picking a random question from Brian Smith. Car accidents like this happen all the time. Midnight, check. Dark Texas road, check. Driving home from party, check. It happened that way all of the time. Yes, you're right. But why would you create fake news across the Pacific? That's unnecessary. If that didn't happen, I would believe the story. But why would one of their friends create a completely fake news only to be followed by New York Times and CNN? Why? If Angela just, had a real accident, eh, it's okay. You don't need to cover up, right? I mean, there's no need if it's a true car accident. Why would they cover that up? It's just not necessary. Or the way they cover up seems extraordinary. So if someone can explain that, then I would buy it. I would buy that it's a normal accident. Um, Nick Fury, do you know the book of Shangyang from the 3rd century BC that Qing dynasty and subsequent feudal imperial used to control people? It reduces Chinese people to slavery. I didn't know of the book. Um, the Qing dynasty. Okay, all right. Pa bis. Lei, our papers are capable of lying on behalf of protecting our intelligence from looking foolish. They've done it. Okay. All right. Let's see. Do you think some say she was being blackmailed about something? It's possible. Texas Panda. Look at her body language. She's high maintenance and a dragon lady. Yeah, I wonder, people say, like Professor Zhang, the people who knew him, people who know him said that he's a genius in science and he's very smart, but his ability to take pressure isn't very high. I mean, this kind of pressure. So I think Angela's ability to take pressure from CCP isn't very high either. So boy Kachina. I love the number 555. Elaine Chao and Mitch live nearby. modestly, driving an '05 Honda CRX, for example, and friendly when at the market or eating. Hope okay. Love to lay. Well, thank you. Okay, all right. I have here from SI Sif BK's 007. 007. I love that. Keep doing what you're doing, Lay. Question. I was shocked and disgusted when Biden is now using TikTok. Your thoughts, please. Is he using TikTok? He should have banned TikTok and WeChat. He should have banned them immediately if he's trying to protect, you know, Chinese. I mean, well, WeChat, if he wants to protect Chinese American communities from being completely infiltrated by the CCP, then he should cut WeChat, you know, here. And if he wants to protect young Americans, then he should, you know, ban TikTok. That's my view. All right, Jim Swalben. How does McConnell's role in trade with China and the opposition to the Trump tariffs fit in to the fight in the U.S. Republican Party? Um, what's his role in trade? I think. Um, to be honest with you, I don't follow American politics very closely, so I don't want to say anything without full knowledge. And I know we have people who support Biden here. We also have people who support Trump. So I don't feel like I know enough about his policy, but I know he's not very tough on China. I think he's being criticized for that. Um, Okay, let's see. Dave M. I was suggesting clinical depression, bipolars can be successful, but as I read the memorials posted by others, it would be hard to believe she suffered from depression. Um, I don't know. I don't know her mental state. Um, it could be anything. Chinese are very good at hiding their problems because it's all about saving face. It's our culture, right? You have problems, you don't talk about it, you hide it, you put on a straight face, you pretend you're happy, you don't have any problems, and and it's a shame to talk about that because you need to carry this image of being perfect, being perfectly happy. um, I don't hold that view. I think imperfection actually make people more interesting, but as long as they're aware of their imperfection. If they're ignorant of their imperfection, that's just uh how to say. But I think when people aware, I mean, we all have strengths and weaknesses. We all make mistakes, but the fact that and mistakes do make us vulnerable, and I think mistakes is our best friends because we learn from them and become stronger. So the so-called perfect people who are perfect, who do everything well, I think are the least interesting people because they never suffer, or they have everything. um right, so that's that's how I look at it. Even a person, like even beauty, cosmetic surgery is so popular now. Like there's so many women that look so perfect. Like I think in one of the pageant in South Korea, they have the website with all the contestants picture, and they all look the same. And we're wondering, well, maybe they all went to the same plastic surgeon and they all look the same. but but then I think those faces are the least interesting to watch because they're all too perfect. They have no personality, um, right? So So I think imperfections do make a person more interesting as long as he or she is aware of their weaknesses. All right. All right. That's all. She wants face saving. Okay, I think that's all. I will stop here. There are people saying I'm very interesting. I'm not. Etsy said I'm not interesting, and here we have someone else, man with no name, say I'm very interesting. Okay, good. All right. All right. Women have to attach a photo with their resume in South Korea from Steve O. Is that true? Someone, James, say, Lei, you have a beautiful face because it's not perfect. Anyways, Lei, you do well. Well, thank you. Thank you. Um, I think personality is more important than a pretty face. I seriously think so. Um, Anyway, okay, that's all. From Quantum Kamata, way to go, Lei. Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure. Okay, thank you all. All right, I need to stop here to take a sip of water. Thank you and enjoy the rest of your week. I'll be back. Bye bye.